She played at love, thinking that I would never know the truth. But every game has an ending, and my ending made her beg for mercy. You will never believe what I came up with. Wait until the end of this story to find out what I did. The old workshop hadn't been opened in years. Even the air inside felt trapped, thick with rust, motor oil, and something sour beneath the dust. I stepped over a box of tangled fishing line, pushed aside a cracked snow shovel, and froze when I saw it. A woman's cream-colored blazer, draped neatly over a stool like someone had left in a hurry. No dust, no cobwebs. Fresh, out of place. It smelled sweet, synthetic. Jasmine, maybe, with a hint of something metallic. I didn't recognize the brand, but I knew I'd smelled it before. I checked the pockets. Inside the left one was a folded note, clean and stiff like it hadn't sat there long. Bring a change of clothes, the smell won't come out. No name, no date. Just one clean sentence in handwriting I recognized immediately. Her R's hooked exactly like that. My wife always took pride in her penmanship. I held the paper a while longer than I meant to, my fingers tight around the edge like the ink might smear. I didn't mention it when I came inside. I didn't ask her about any blazer. That night I went into a department store downtown and walked past every perfume bottle until I found that exact scent. It hit me instantly. Same sharp sweetness, same bite. I bought it. No wrapping, no note. Just handed it to her in the kitchen. Her reaction came fast. Why would I want this? This isn't my style. Her voice cracked halfway through. Her fingers twitched like she almost dropped the bottle. Then her face hardened. Not confused, but cold. I watched her every second. The way her lips pressed together, how she turned away too quickly. Something wasn't just off. Something had already happened. I nodded like I didn't notice. No fight, no comment. I just walked to the garage and pulled out one of Dad's old notebooks. I wrote a single line at the top of a blank page. Note found in blazer. Perfume match. She lied. Then I kept writing. Hours passed. I filled the margins with names she mentioned once and never again. Meetings that ran too late. Passwords I'd memorized and dates she forgot. I didn't feel betrayed. Not yet. I felt aware. In the following days, I didn't press her. I let her relax. But I watched everything. The way she checked her phone with her back to me. How she always hummed one broken tune when she cooked. One night, I woke up and she wasn't beside me. I found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone like she was somewhere else entirely. She didn't notice me. Every few days, I returned to the blazer. Still clean. Still tucked where I left it. With that note like a splinter under my nail. Something about it didn't age, didn't fade. It felt like a message that was still unfolding. That perfume clung to the fabric. A reminder I couldn't shake even if I wanted to. Then one evening, she came home late. I beat her back for once, and I smelled it. That exact perfume. Faint, but unmistakable. The bathroom window was open. She hadn't even sprayed it inside the house. Just brought the scent with her like it belonged somewhere else entirely. I didn't write anything that night. I just stood in the garage and stared at the mirror, watching a man I didn't quite recognize. Not broken, not angry. Something colder, sharper, focused. She told me the next morning she'd be heading out for a girls' retreat. Just 2 nights. Same group she always mentioned, but never named. She smiled when she said it, casually tossing red heels and black lingerie into her bag like I wasn't even standing there. No toothbrush, no pajamas. Just those few things and a sleep mask she hadn't touched in months. I nodded like I believed her, wished her a safe trip. Then I went into the back of the closet and dug out my old Polaroid. Bought in college, still working, still loaded with film. I called into work, made up a story about a client near the coast, and booked a room across from the hotel on her receipt. The one I found folded in her winter coat. She thought she'd slipped away clean, thought I was too dull or too tired to look closely. But the moment she stepped out of that black car in front of the suite, red heels shining, lipstick too sharp, I knew exactly what I'd become. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt ready. The hotel across the street had wide windows and warm lights that made it look more honest than it was. I sat behind a cracked curtain in my own room, Polaroid camera ready, watching the suite number on the second floor she'd reserved. She moved like someone waiting for a signal, pacing in heels, fixing her hair, pouring a drink. It wasn't nervousness. It was routine. At 9:17 p.m., two men walked in. The first looked young, in a sharp suit, but the second, a taller, lean and slower in his movements, hit me like a blow to the chest. His face was older, but that tattoo on his neck was unmistakable. A crow with wings out, claws around a dagger. Years ago, she showed me a photo, stuffed inside a worn novel. He died, she said. Motorcycle crash. Her ex long gone. Only now here he was, walking into her hotel suite like he owned the place. And she welcomed him. I snapped 3 Polaroids. One as they entered, one as the curtains closed, one of the empty hallway after the door shut. In the second photo, I caught her expression, tilted head, mouth open mid-laugh. I hadn't seen her laugh like that in years. I drove 3 towns away that night, not because I was scared, but because I didn't trust myself to go home. The photos sat in the passenger seat like evidence from someone else's life. I stared at them for hours, not blinking. Not sure if I was disgusted or just done being fooled. Back home the next day, I walked straight into our bedroom and tore everything down. Every framed photo, every blanket she chose, every gift she'd ever handed me with those soft lies in her eyes. By the time the sun dropped, the room was bare. Nothing left but a single wooden chair and a tall mirror propped against the far wall. The mirror was old from the attic, full of streaks and scratches that warped the reflection. I liked it better that way. When she walked in the next night, suitcase in hand, she stopped in the doorway and blinked like she was looking at a stranger's house. "What is this?" I didn't answer right away, just stared at her and finally said, "Now you're a guest too." Then I left. That night I didn't sleep at home. I sat in my truck with a notebook and started listing everything she'd ever said that didn't quite line up. People, places, phrases. There were patterns, slips she never expected me to catch. I followed the trail like I was the outsider now, trying to learn what this version of her was hiding. I started leaving clues, small ones, a book misplaced, an empty envelope tucked in her coat pocket, a name underlined in a newspaper left on the kitchen counter. Nothing direct, but enough to make her wonder if something had shifted. She noticed. She started locking doors, checking her phone with her back to the room, avoiding mirrors, especially the one in the white room. Then I vanished, took cash from the savings, left no digital trail, and disappeared. No note, no goodbye. I just became space she couldn't fill. She called, texted, even emailed. Her voice changed with every message. Annoyed, then worried, then frantic. She asked mutual friends where I'd gone, visited my office, even showed up at my brother's place. No one knew anything. That was the point. While she panicked, I stayed quiet. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt, that twisting sense of dread when everything familiar stops making sense. I left her one last thing, a note tucked into her favorite book, pressed between old pages. "You said you'd never forget him, but you forgot what forgetting looks like." No name, no explanation. Just a reflection, staring back through the mirror she refused to face. The house didn't feel like home anymore. Not to her. That was the point. I'd taken everything soft and familiar and stripped it to the bone. The white room stayed locked, untouched except when she wandered in like she thought she could still reclaim it. She stood in front of the warped mirror sometimes, just breathing, watching herself from angles she didn't recognize. But I was already gone by then, and the silence I left behind did the talking. I watched her from a distance. Not every day, just enough to know when the cracks started to show. Her car stayed in the driveway longer than usual. She stopped taking work calls on speaker. She stared at old photos longer, like she was hunting for something in the background. That mirror was doing its job. She couldn't quite see herself clearly anymore. I left traces, not messages, echoes. A word scrawled into a dusty window. A photo on the hallway floor she swore was locked away. A single earring in the mailbox. It wasn't hers. That's what made it effective. She started looking for me. Not just by calling. She searched. Dug. She called old friends she hadn't seen in years. Visited places we used to go. She left a note on my dad's workshop door. "Can we just talk?" it said. It was written in her handwriting, but it wasn't the same script she used on birthday cards or sticky notes on the fridge. It was careful. Like she was trying to sound normal and forgot what normal looked like. That's when I turned the game into something real. I gave her a name. Just one. I wrote it on the inside cover of a book in the garage and left it out during a storm so the pages curled. The ink bled a little. She found it 3 days later. That night, she stayed up pacing the hallway, staring at the book like it might whisper a secret if she held it long enough. She started researching. I know because the name I gave her wasn't real. It was a first name from a childhood story she used to tell me, and a last name from a forgotten street we drove through once in Ohio. The fact that she believed it said everything. She stopped trusting people. I watched her at the grocery store once, hands trembling as she reached for the same brand of cereal I used to buy. She didn't put it in the cart, just stared at it and walked out without buying anything, like something about it haunted her. And then I gave her a rule. I left it tucked under the bathroom rug, folded into a square with surgical precision. Inside was a playing card, the Queen of Hearts, with a single line written in black ink. Every move cost you something. That broke something in her. It wasn't about me anymore. Not exactly. It was about control. She had built a life where every lie was a thread in a web, and now she couldn't tell which ones still held and which ones were unraveling. I wasn't just gone. I'd become the ghost in her walls, and she began to talk to herself. I saw her one night through the glass sitting on the edge of the White Room's chair, whispering, not in fear, but like she was practicing lines, trying to rehearse her way out of a corner that kept shrinking. She thought I might be watching, and she was right. I watched from the tree line behind the garage, notebook in hand, every movement marked. Her body moved like it weighed more than it used to. She called my brother again, then his wife, then a woman I barely remembered from a company picnic. Her voice always started steady, but she couldn't keep it that way. Everyone could tell something was off. And then she made a mistake. She called the man with the tattoo, not from her phone. She used a burner. I knew because I'd planted it. Left it in her gym bag 2 weeks earlier with a sticky note on the back that said, "Use if you have to." When she finally did, I had it rerouted. I didn't need to hear the conversation. I just needed confirmation that she still believed he was the only one who could help her now. And that meant she was out of options. I gave her one more clue. A slip of paper tucked into the mail, no return address, folded around an old matchbox from a bar we visited once on a road trip. Inside the matchbox was a photo, her and the man with the tattoo, taken from the hotel window, grainy but undeniable. On the back of the photo I wrote, "How dead is he really?" That was the night she finally cracked. She tore apart the White Room, smashed the mirror, ripped open the walls like she thought I might be hiding in them. I wasn't. I was miles away, watching from a burner phone as security footage fed in from the camera I'd hidden in the attic vent. She was unraveling, and I didn't lift a finger. The next morning, she left. No suitcase this time. Just a bag, dark clothes, her hair pulled back like she didn't want to be seen. I didn't follow. I didn't have to. The game was already shifting, and she was no longer the player. She was the prize. And soon I'd find someone who'd been watching her just as long as I had. Someone with her own reasons for wanting the truth dragged into the light. The motel at the state line was the kind of place people disappeared into. Broken vending machines, flickering red vacancy sign, the kind of silence that hung thick even in the daylight. I paid in cash, no name, and took the last room, just past the ice machine, overlooking nothing but a gravel lot and a dumpster. It was perfect. I wasn't hiding, not really. I was waiting. I met her at the bar next to the motel. It wasn't a planned meeting, at least not at first. She looked too tired to be flirting, too wired to be relaxed. The way she scanned the room before ordering her drink told me everything. She was on the run too. And I wasn't the only one watching people anymore. We talked over cheap whiskey. Her name was Lauren. I didn't ask for her last, and she didn't ask mine. That was part of the deal. She said she'd left her husband a week ago, called him a psycho, but not in the dramatic sense. Said it flat, like someone who'd lived through something and didn't need to prove it. I didn't push. Then she slipped. She mentioned a name, one I hadn't heard in years, but one that made my stomach coil the second it hit the air. My wife's dead ex. She didn't notice my reaction. She just kept talking. About parties, about expensive suites, about people with too much money and too many secrets. She said she used to work the events, bartending, sometimes service, called it the club, like it was a place but not a place. Just a gathering where favors replaced currency and loyalty was a myth. That's when I showed her the photo, the one from the hotel, my wife and the tattooed man, mid-laugh, mid-lie. Her face didn't change. She just leaned forward, eyes on the image like she was studying it for clues she'd been waiting to find. Then she pulled out her phone and opened a hidden folder. Pictures, dozens, some blurry, some sharp, but all of them taken from angles that said she hadn't been there as a guest. She'd been in the walls watching from shadows. She showed me a photo from a year ago. Same hotel, same suite, same man, and my wife. Only this time she wasn't smiling. She was holding a drink, arm around someone else, and in the corner of the shot, almost lost in the reflection of a decorative mirror, was a flash of the same red heels, the same ones she packed for the retreat. Lauren said there were rules in the club, rules about who could be seen and who had to remain invisible. But some broke the rules. Some got greedy. Some collected things. Favors, footage, faces. I asked her how deep it went. She didn't answer with words. She showed me a list. First names, cities, check-in dates, all recorded in a scribbled code, and tucked between them were initials I recognized. Ones my wife had mentioned in passing, back when we still shared stories at the dinner table. People she claimed to hate, people she claimed to barely know. It wasn't just cheating. It wasn't even just lying. It was leverage. She had access. She was part of something designed to feed on secrets. She wasn't trapped. She was a cog. And I'd been asleep for years. Lauren warned me, said people who dig too deep tend to go missing. Not in the newsworthy sense, but in the quiet kind. The kind where no one files a report. The kind where the people left behind don't ask too many questions. I asked her why she was showing me all this. She didn't speak for a long time. Just lit a cigarette with shaking fingers and said, "Because you're not one of them." Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. A necklace. Silver, delicate, broken clasp. She laid it on the table and stared at it like it hurt her to see it again. "My sister wore this the last time I saw her," she said. "She went to one of those retreats. She never came back." That was the moment I stopped planning revenge and started preparing for something bigger. The next morning, I packed up the Polaroid, the notebook, and every piece of evidence Lauren gave me. I drove 3 hours west and checked into another motel under a fake name. No credit cards, no online traces. Then I went to work. I created a new identity, grew out my beard, changed my walk, wore contacts, bought a cheap set of teeth veneers to alter my jawline just enough to pass as someone forgettable. I signed on as a delivery contractor, short runs, paid in cash, no questions asked. Within a week, I had a route near the very club Lauren had mentioned, and then came the moment that nearly made my heart stop. I delivered a package to her. She opened the door, same face, same eyes, but she didn't recognize me. She signed the slip, said thanks in that soft, fake sweet tone she used when she wanted people to think she was harmless. Then she shut the door. I stood there for a full minute, heartbeat a war drum in my chest. I knew I couldn't touch her yet. Not then, not directly, but I could reach her. 2 days later, I left a small box inside her handbag while she was distracted at the front desk. Inside was her old diary, open to a page I remembered reading once, years ago. I'll never be able to forget him, but I have to pretend. She'd written it about the tattooed man, and now it was coming back to her. I didn't stay to see her reaction, but I could imagine it, and I knew. The panic had begun. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that presses down on your lungs, heavy with everything unspoken. I knew she'd seen the diary. I knew what it would do to her. I didn't need to witness it, just waited for the fallout. It came faster than I expected. She burst through the door midday, Hair wild, face pale, jacket stained with something dark and wet. In her hand, a knife. No words for a while, just a shaking breath and eyes that didn't blink. "I had to," she finally said. "They made me." I didn't ask who, didn't ask what. I only offered her tea. She couldn't hold the mug, so I wrapped her in a blanket and let her collapse into the couch. Her words came broken, about people watching her, threats, confessions. She kept saying someone forced her to tell everything, but she never said what she'd told. When she passed out on the couch, I walked to the office. Behind a false panel in the filing cabinet was the safe, unchanged combination. Inside, the flash drive I'd hidden long ago. Footage of her first visit to that hotel suite, the moment her web of lies had truly started. I didn't watch it. I didn't need to. I just drove 3 towns over and handed it to a contact, someone I trusted, a journalist who specialized in stories most people weren't brave enough to publish. She watched 10 seconds of footage and looked at me like she'd just seen behind the curtain. "This hits more than just her." "That's the point," I said. That night, I didn't go home. I sat in a car across the street and watched the windows glow from every room. She wasn't sleeping. She paced like she was walking between choices, none of them good. She made calls. None lasted more than a few minutes. I recognized some of the names she dialed. The same men from the club. The same names from Lauren's list. They wanted answers. She didn't have any, and now they didn't trust her. The network that once kept her powerful was starting to cannibalize itself. Men began to vanish from the radar. Numbers disconnected, meetings canceled. The club shifted its face. New names, new blood, no loyalty. And she unraveled with it. I could see it in how she moved. Slower, like every step carried weight. Makeup faded, eyes hollow, meals uneaten. Her mask was slipping, and I made sure she noticed. One morning I left a photo in her purse of our white room, back when it had meaning. On the back, a message. "What's left when pretending stops?" She didn't leave the house for 2 days. Then, without warning, she showed up at my brother's place. Begged him to tell her where I was, sobbing, desperate. His answer was simple. I was gone. He hadn't seen me in weeks. She didn't speak after that, just walked out like the air had been pulled from her lungs. That night she called me. Block number. 30 seconds. "You win. Whatever this is, you win. Just tell me what the rules are now. Please." I didn't call back. Because the rules? I'd already broken them, and the final move wasn't hers to make. 3 weeks passed. She stopped calling, stopped crying. But something was happening behind her silence. Not surrender, not guilt. It was fear, sharpened down to instinct. I saw it in the way she moved when she thought no one was watching. Constant glances over her shoulder. Keys clutched tighter. That tiny pause before stepping out the front door, like she expected someone to be waiting. She wasn't wrong. Names started dropping off the grid, one by one. Men from her circles, people I remembered only by how she whispered about them, like they weren't just friends, but pieces of something bigger. They stopped showing up at the club. Their companies went dark. Some simply disappeared. No explanations, no press. But I had the list, and I knew those were the names that had passed through her blazer's pocket, the same ones tied to that note. "Bring a change of clothes, the smell won't come out." It wasn't a flirtation, it was a warning. Now the fallout was crawling toward her. She tried covering her tracks, spinning new lies, reaching out to people who used to owe her something. But nothing landed. No one called back. Whatever web she'd spun, it was tearing fast, and now every strand pulled tighter around her throat. She was no longer protected. She was exposed. That's when she called me again. This time from a clean number, straight to voicemail. Her voice was smaller now, like she was rehearsing an apology, but didn't know who she was anymore. "I need to talk, please. Just 5 minutes. No more games." I agreed, but I didn't come alone. We met at a cafe just outside the city. I sat facing the door. She walked in slow, shoulders stiff, eyes scanning for an ambush. She was paler than I remembered, makeup barely covering the panic. When she saw me, something in her face flickered. Relief, fear, maybe both. Then she saw the woman sitting beside me. Lauren. She froze. Couldn't sit. Couldn't breathe. Lauren didn't speak, just laid a folder on the table and slid it across. Inside were photos, receipts, timestamps, room keys, copies of everything. Proof that the club hadn't just used people like my wife. They'd built systems around them, traded influence for bodies, loyalty for leverage. And my wife wasn't just complicit, she was essential. Lauren pulled out one more thing, an old letter, stained and creased, written by her sister, the same sister who'd vanished. The letter begged to be rescued, said names, gave dates, and in the margin, circled twice, was the name of the man my wife claimed had died. He hadn't, and my wife had lied about more than just her own past. She backed away from the table, hands raised like she could push it all away with air. "You don't understand," she muttered. "I didn't know how far it went." Lauren said nothing. Neither did I. We stood slowly, left her standing there, alone in that booth, surrounded by the ruins of everything she thought she could still control. We didn't call the police. We didn't need to. She was already condemned by the silence of everyone who used to protect her. The kind of fall where no one offers you a hand because they're already trying to cover their own collapse. That night she didn't go home. I know because I was watching. She ran, but not fast enough. Her world was shrinking, options thinning, trust vanished, and the walls were closing in, tight, brutal, and final. Everything she'd used to stay on top was now dragging her under. And all I had to do was let it happen. The woman she used to be didn't exist anymore. Not in how she moved, not in how she spoke, and definitely not in how people looked at her when they looked at all. She tried vanishing into smaller towns, checking into roadside motels under names she couldn't pronounce without stuttering. But every new place carried the scent of something collapsing behind her. The club was gone. The network dissolved. Its members disappeared or hiding behind fake deaths and new identities. The silence from above was deafening, and she was the loudest noise left. That made her the target. Not officially, no hit list, just whispers. People she once called allies now ducked her messages. Bank accounts frozen, her old contacts disconnected. She wasn't hunted the way people imagine. They didn't send someone after her. They just let her feel the weight of being abandoned. The kind of slow death that doesn't end with a bullet, but with being forgotten by every door you once had the key to. She reached out one last time. No games this time. Just a message, sent from a burner number that had only ever dialed once. "Come see me. You deserve that much." I didn't respond right away, but I knew I would. I had one last thing to do before the curtain closed. Lauren and I tracked down the tattooed man 2 days before the meeting. He wasn't hiding. He just didn't expect anyone to still be watching. Same neck ink, same cold eyes. We didn't confront him, didn't expose him. We only needed to confirm one thing. He'd never been the mastermind, just a part of it, a face to keep her loyal, a ghost they kept alive to control her through fear and obsession. She never left him. She was assigned to him. And once he was done using her, they discarded her like she was never part of anything at all. I met her in a burned-out apartment on the edge of town. The building had been condemned after a fire a year back. Broken windows, scorched drywall, soot still etched into the floor. But she'd chosen it for a reason. No one would come looking for either of us here. She was already there, sitting on the floor in what used to be the living room. Her clothes were cleaner than I expected, hair tied back. She'd tried to present herself like she still had control, like some version of dignity could shield her from the wreckage around her. It didn't. I said nothing at first, just stood in the doorway and watched her try to hold still. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, voice flat. "You did," I said. "That's why you picked this place." She didn't argue. She started talking, not to confess, not to explain, but to survive. She told me about the early days, how the club operated, how they marked people, how each mistake was used as a thread to pull them deeper. But I'd heard most of it already, from Lauren, from files, from people she never imagined I'd find. So I let her speak. She told me they never let her leave, that she wasn't just cheating, she was trading. Secrets, access, trust. It started small, she said, an email here, a dinner there. But then came blackmail, And then came the part where she stopped being a person and started being a product. And yet, not once did she say the word sorry. That was the part that made it easy. I pulled a small box from my coat and set it on the ground between us. Inside was her necklace, the one she lost 2 years ago and never asked about. I'd found it behind the dresser when I cleared the bedroom for the white room. I kept it all this time, not for her, but for this exact moment. She picked it up with shaking fingers. I used to wear this every day. I know. She opened the box's hidden compartment. Inside it, a flash drive. Not with footage, not with evidence. Just one audio file, a message from Lauren's sister, a voice begging for someone to save her. My wife covered her mouth. Finally. Not in shock, but shame. She listened to every second, didn't blink, didn't look away, just sat there with her eyes wide and lips trembling. When it ended, she whispered, "What do I do now?" I stood. "You run," I said, "not because someone's chasing you, but because no one ever will again." She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't follow me out of the building. And that was it. No final blow. No revenge speech. Just silence. The same kind she gave me for years. Only now it was permanent. Lauren and I left that town the next day. No dramatic exit. No goodbyes. We drove until the signal bars dropped, until the map no longer had names for the roads we were on. There was nothing left to chase. Only the freedom that comes from walking away from something that once owned every piece of your life. She still exists somewhere, I'm sure, in motels and borrowed cars, surviving off instinct and whatever she can steal from the ashes. But she no longer controls the story. That was the part she never understood. Control doesn't come from what you hide. It comes from what you survive. And I survived her. Let her rot. Let the silence stay. Let the ghosts whisper her name and walk right past. Because for the first time in my life, she doesn't get to matter anymore. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.